We are already live. What's going on, investors? Just here from Investments. I gotta move that mic over so you can actually see me when I'm talking to you, right? All right, let's get this all set up, get this going. I believe I'm live. Yeah, I am live. Okay. Today we are going to look at some of the damage over the past couple of days because Bitcoin's been on a bit of a downtrend for the past little bit here, and as Bitcoin moves, so do the alts, and we just want to kind of assess things, take a look at where some of these have gone, see if anything's looking still optimistic, see how some of our trades are playing out, see if we need to do anything with these, right? So we are going to start with Bitcoin, of course, but I do want to say today is April 24th, 2023. If you're new here, my name is Dest, and this is Investments, where I am looking at some technical analysis, looking at some charts, looking at some graphs, seeing if we got anything that we can play with, right? Seeing if we can identify any trends, get some profits, get some gains. We want the tendies, we want to put them in our pocket. We want those tendies. The reason we're doing this is because we want the tendies, right? This is a path, my journey to financial independence, and this is one of the tools in my toolbox because this has been something that has been successful for me in the past. So continuing that and continuing on with that. Okay. All right, so we had this nice parallel channel that we were riding right on top of ever since March 17th. I want to say we had been broken out of this parallel channel, riding the top line of it. You can see you had multiple touches along the top side of this channel, and your last touch on April 23rd springed you up higher past that $29,000 level, which is a key level that we identified, saying we want to be above that level, we want to stay there, we want to break that and continue above there. If all else failed, we did want to stay above that $28,000 level, and what happened? We broke both those levels to the downside, which is not great. Again, we're looking at this for the first time in the past couple of days. I imagine this is old news for some people, but that's okay. I don't see a lot of people have it charted this way. Everyone's got their own different flavor, how they want to do it. That's fine, no big deal. You just try to identify things that are happening. Ideally, we stay above this low from March 27th of 2023. I'm going to adjust that to be a little more accurate, which also correlates to this high from March 14th. Not super critical levels, right? Like there's not a lot of weight to these levels, but you could imagine that that would be the next floor for you to either test to break through or bounce off like a trampoline, right? Because you have broken all these other two. That is also, as long as you're still doing that, you're still making higher lows on this time scale. Let's go to a bigger time scale because we were kind of zoomed in. I understand I have a lot of lines here. I'm going to go ahead and delete a couple of these. A couple of these I don't want to. Either way, you're not looking super bad, right? Like I think realistically, you could make a pullback all the way to 25,000 and still have an argument that you're going to continue on higher, right? Reason being is because you would have your first low, your second low, and then if you pulled back even more, your third low, or even right now, your third low, right? So it's not looking too terrible. Obviously, in the recent time frame, it is, right? But wrong tool. I always fucking do that. It's got to be a hotkey for this one. You're down from the recent top about 13%. Not too crazy, right? When you're really thinking in the grand scheme of things, 13% is not much, especially when this run has taken us already 102% up to the upside, right? So yes, it is looking negative for the day. Is it looking negative for a very long term? I don't know. The picture is still being painted, but we have levels identified where we could say, okay, well, looking worse if we're breaking below this level, looking way worse if we're breaking below this level. And if you start making a low that's lower than this low, that's going to be really not a great situation for this. What do we got going on here? Higher. lower, is that hidden bullish divergence? Hidden, I mean bearish divergence occurs when the lower high, okay, let's see, lower high, higher high. No, I was mistaken. Some sort of divergence going on and not looking great. Either way, let's see if we can zoom in on a smaller time scale and see if we can find anything. It's just looking very flat to me, right? But and as I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, you just had a massive run, you flatlined, and then at the tail end of that flatline, you broke out. Like, it's not too crazy to have a nice pullback after that before pumping. Like, I'm not convinced this is super negative, right? All right, we're gonna go to the daily and we're gonna start running through some of these cryptos here. If you have any that you would like me to look at, and I'll say this in the chat as well, give me your requests. I'd be happy to look at them. Send. Okay. Let's go. All right, going to start off with the critical blue chip ones, looking at Ethereum, looking at Litecoin. Want to see something happening here, and I got a lot of lines on here. Don't be distracted. Yeah, you had a pretty significant pullback on Ethereum. It did not fare as well as some, I mean, it fared better than a lot of the altcoins, but it did not fare that well. Your major pullback could be to this 17,011. Do I see anything else? I mean, okay, you could have a turnaround right here, which would coincide with this March 20th plateau, right? Where you got these highs staggering, building support, testing this as resistance before breaking out to the upside. To see a turnaround here would make sense to me, right? Not too crazy. Like, that seems like a good level. But it also seems like a good level to have it pull back to, right? Like, after this nice run, you're gonna pull back to some point here. I'm gonna clean this up real quick, and we're gonna take a look at something. Let's do a fib. Nope. Alt F. No. Oh, I'm doing control, that's why. Okay, you're already back to the 382, which is common retrace. Would like to see it get to that 618, which would correlate to this level here. So you could potentially see a little bit more room to the downside before really building a case to say, like, hey, we're turning it around. Yeah, I think realistically you're gonna pull back to 1711. It makes a lot of sense if Bitcoin does want to do that, right? It all depends on what Bitcoin wants to do. So if you get another down day, I think your next stop at Ethereum is 1711. But I'm getting very far into the weeds, I believe. Let's keep moving along. Let's take a look at Litecoin. So one of the things we keep saying about Litecoin, I'm gonna check the Discord here. Looking for something real quick. Okay. One of the things we keep saying about Litecoin is you got this nice green sloping upsloping green line, right? And every time you've touched it, you've just had a massive run. Like, you pull back after that massive run, touch it again, and you have a massive run. Touch it again and have that massive run. Touch it again, and now we're starting our massive run. And you have yet to come back to this level. And even when you look at this, like, oh yeah, this isn't that crazy of a run. Well, this is 550%. We've checked this multiple times. From here to here is about 550%. No reason why you couldn't have something similar to that, right? Like, just think about, okay, we had this run from that green line. After consolidation, you had that 550%. You had this run, which took you even higher. and now you have your consolidation looking like a very similar structure. Could we easily have a 550% run again? Could it at least take us to that 145 level that it saw off that 550% run? From there would be 67%. From that green line, which keeps getting tighter and tighter to that 145, would be a 210% line. Why is that important? Well, it's telling me that every time it gets to that level, people are accumulating it. They're saying, this is a bargain price, I'm buying here, and it reverses. Gets to that point, I'm accumulating, buying, and it starts to reverse. We have touched this now 1, 2, maybe even 3, buckle your shoe. I don't know how many times here. 1, 2, 3, 4, close the damn door, 5, a couple times. And after you touch that, you did a nice back test to this yellow line. What is the significance of this yellow line? Well, I don't know. What do I have that drawn in there? Just due to the fact of the multiple touches, or no? It correlates to the 2013 all-time high, right? So having it pull back, bounce off that critical level before continuing on higher, just showing the stacking levels of strength to this case, right? Like, okay, this green line being tested, showing one level of strength. Having it tested multiple times before continuing higher, stack that strength up. Having a spring out of there with a back test of that 2013 level, another stack on that case, right? And then having this nice run, pull back, and then again spring on to off of that $65 level, which is that 2013 all-time high. Just adding to the argument that Litecoin is just stair-stepping its way higher and going to start, I think it's going to be one of the leaders of the market on this run, right? I think this has just got such a strong case for the long term. Like, you don't see many other ones that have such a nice identified upsloping trend line, right? Just very, very good looking. I like to look at BNB, although this chart is just very odd to me, right? Like, one of the things that's so different about this is you had this massive run up and it didn't have a typical crypto sell-off, right? Like, it didn't just absolutely plummet. Like, in fact, you barely pulled back. Let's see, from the low here, Alt F to the high. You're kind of at this, bouncing off the 618 right now. Like, that's where the main support is. Like, you had a little bit of an overshoot off that drawdown, but interesting. So, I mean, this chart just looks so much different than all the other ones. Why is it different? And what does that mean, right? That's the important thing. To me, it's telling me that this has more strength than most other cryptos, right? Or that it has yet to make its drawdown. The case could be made for either one of those arguments, right? Personally, I think it just hasn't really just, this is a tough one. I mean, there's so many good things going for it right now. Like, you're building higher highs, you're stair-stepping higher lows, you're above the 200-day moving average, you're starting to make this little bit of a wedge formation. There are arguments there that it's a very positive looking coin, right? Like, someone accumulated at a much higher price than a lot of other cryptos pulled back to. So looking better than most, and I don't understand why. But all right, we're gonna go to some of our typical ones that we take a look at. We're gonna start with ICX. The funny thing about ICX is we identified it, we did not get into the trade, and we kicked ourselves in the ass for that. But then we also identified a spot where we could potentially start adding on in a position where we pulled back to the 618 after a nice breakout, and we didn't make that trade either. And that's okay. Sometimes you just take the lessons and you just learn from them, right? However, this is again pulling back to that 618. Potential add-on position. However, you are making lower highs, you're making lower lows than your local ones. Not looking as strong as it was before when you just had that massive run up and then a nice pullback, right? Like you almost are double topping out right now. You could see some strength being tested at about 26 cents, maybe where it is right now. Or looking back, like you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 multiple touches at this level. Would be a decent spot to make an entry if you were looking to get into this one. However, there's coins that look much better than this. I said this last time and then I kicked myself for not getting into it, but that's okay. T-Fuel. Respecting this important level at 4.9 cents. Oh no, that's where my alert is. Yeah, 4.9 cents, respecting that level. And you can see it's just kind of rode along here multiple times, right? Multiple touches along there, a dip below there before coming back up to retest it again. And now it's retesting it again. It might be collapsing a little bit below that, right? We can redraw that. I don't think that's too unreasonable. Yeah, that's fair. So a good spot for it to reverse. Otherwise, it's a pretty important level. And you break down below here, you're gonna see 4 cents, maybe to even 3 cents. There's just not much here. I would say this is probably the important next level that you would pull back to, and that's correlating back to this January 15th, 2021 high, and as well as this support that was made in November 19th. Seems like a very reasonable spot. Next, Theta. And watching this one very closely, obviously. I've always been on the Theta train, at least for a while here. Clean up this chart a little bit. And what do we like about it? What do we not like? Well, I like that we're still kind of building higher lows. You're still above, you're below $1. So I don't like that you're below $1 now. That was kind of the important critical role or level for it. But realistically, the line's at 96 cents. That's where I drew it at. Do not want to be below that line. You do not want to fall below this recent high. If you do, I would say your next stop is 86 cents with not much room down to 80 cents. So a lot of these are starting to look like they just don't have as much strength as they did before. Very interesting. Let's look at a couple more. Let's look at Doge and XRP. This is not the Doge chart I was looking at, is it? I mean, we were drawing this. I can barely remember now. We looked at it a while ago. It does look like it's broken out from this. Take this over here real quick. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to find that right now. That's fine. Looking better than a lot of other cryptos just because like you haven't had a massive drawdown. Granted, I'm looking at the daily right now. You're still building higher lows, right? You're still stair-stepping your way out. You're kind of broken out of this, whatever you want to call it, downsloping green line, where you rode around on that before breaking out, doing a nice back test before continuing on higher. You're below the 200-day moving average, so not looking great. Is this a reasonable time to enter? Well, Yeah, I could see this being a pivot point, right? And the reason I'm saying this, okay, we're turning around here. Let's build this argument in this. So we turn around here. Why? Well, because it was tested as resistance before it broke out, and now it's testing it as support. Tested it as resistance here. Tested it as support here. Resistance, resistance, support. Let's see if we can go back in time. We can't on this chart. Let's see if we can do something like Bittrex and see. Oops. Sorry. Let's draw that same line. Alt H. Looking a little like a different chart here, to be honest. Multiple touches, multiple touches, multiple touches. Not as clean over in this general area though. Not as clean as you'd like to see. I don't know, like you could make an argument for this. I would not disagree. Okay, this is where it was. However, we redrew this nice wedge, saying that this was what we were thinking we'd want to see a breakout of. So we want to see a breakout of this green line. That's why. Okay, I was looking at the wrong chart. Makes sense. So looking okay. Like it's doing better than some of the other ones, but not fantastic, right? This is another crypto that's, oh, excuse me, just not define or obeying the typical crypto rules, right? The pattern is just so much different than what you were seeing in some of these other ones, and we were saying that you had a nice green upsloping demand line here where, okay, it was kind of appearing, but has since broke down. Don't like to see that. You're not too drastically to the downside, and realistically you're down below 200 day. You are freaking tired. You're still above this 96 level, which is an important level just based on how many support touches you have on there. Very interesting to see it almost flat as Bitcoin had a nice drawdown. I don't have much to say about a lot of these today, I apologize. Shiba is looking worse and worse and worse. Not great. CRX still broken out of this, but not looking too great here. Would expect to see probably pull back a little bit more for continuing on higher. Okay, let's switch. We're gonna look at our stock plays. Intel, okay, we're breaking down here. Not great. Huh. This was one of the plays that we had, and I can walk you through this here real quick. Look at all these touches on this big bold red line. Multiple touches, and now you're starting to reverse at that spot. You put it on a nice, almost triple bottom at that spot, and it looks like you were going to turn around. You had a breakout of the neckline, but then you immediately fell back below it. And that is not what you want to see. You want to see it continue on higher out of that. You want to see good volume coming out on the breakout. And there's a lot of earnings coming out very shortly. Is it this week? Yeah, this one's this week. So we'll see what happens with that. That's not looking too promising. And I think earnings on a couple of these aren't going to be too hot. Nokia gapping down pretty drastically. What gaps typically fill. So would expect to see it make at least a little bit of a run. Could see at least 450. because gaps will typically fill, but this is just not playing out how we anticipated. So we're probably gonna put that on the back burner. I don't know what the hell this one is, to be honest. GE. Oh, dude, this trade has just been fantastic, right? Wow. This is textbook inverse head and shoulders. You had your shoulder, your head, your shoulder, your neckline right here, and your measured move is from the top of the head to the neckline. You copy that, paste it on the breakout of the neckline, and that is your target. And we are on path for that. And in this market, while everything else is not doing anything, it just keeps stair-stepping higher. That is great trade, great trade. And I told multiple people about that. I'm gonna have to follow up and see if some of those guys got in, because I used to work for that company, and still know quite a few people that do. Oh, let's take a look at it. Massive pullback. Okay. PAA, nice. So this is what we want to see. We want to see that breakout being sustained. Yeah, a nice sustain. Yeah, you're kind of. You look like you're tapering off, right? I want to see some green volume coming in. I want to see this momentum continue on positive for a bit. Keep us out of this pennant, right? Like, we don't want to fall back in here again. That would not be great. Like, you don't want to do it 3 times. That would just not be good. But looking pretty decent. Looking like that ABC correction to that low, when you had that nice consolidation and you're popping out to the upside. That's exactly what you want to identify. That's exactly what you want to plan for and make your trade, where you got a risk reward that's beneficial to you. We made our target based off this low to this high, copied that, pasted it on the breakout, and that's where we're getting our 47%. Our stop loss is back into that formation, so if it does fall into that formation, we get knocked out of that trade again. EOSE, woo, what a trip to the downside that's taken. Looking like you're going to retest that 200-day moving average. You're still building a higher low than right here. Are we on a whoa, almost looking like a bit of a head and shoulders formation, but not too crazy. Okay, what can we see? Yeah. Negative momentum building on this. Not looking great. Lots of negative volume. People are selling out. Maybe they know something about earnings prior to it releasing May 10th. Yeah. So this is one of the problems with trading stocks, is I feel like people are just so keyed into what's going to happen with their earnings reports that when that happens, they're already pre-running that, making their selling before that, where they're buying the rumor, selling the news, right? Type situation. Amazon is the other last trade that we're in, and their earnings is, I want to say Thursday as well. Yeah, Thursday the 27th. So yet to be seen. But this is one of the strongest arguments we had for our trade following GE. So this is like our big trade after GE we made, where you got your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touches on this broadening wedge. Then you had an inverted head and shoulders with a breakout of that neckline, right? You had a breakout corresponding at the same time of this broadening wedge, but then you also had this like nice upsloping demand line here off a retest on this $80.50 level, which correlates to the high from March 2018, where it was tested as a resistance twice before breaking to the upside, and then held as support for quite a while before making this massive run. The way you would measure this broadening wedge is to the top of the formation, which would bring you to a 67% gain if that's possible. But then you also got your inverted head and shoulders, which is a 22% gain. Great opportunity to add your stop loss in, because if you break back down to this formation, would not be too crazy, or it would be a good spot to knock you out of your trade and not lose too much. So I think the big move will come on Thursday for this. I honestly think Amazon's going to have a positive one. Looks like some of the other ones are pricing in some negative moves. But I appreciate you if you're watching. Thank you. Till next time. Later. Skater.